Hello, friends. Welcome to the fourth episode on this channel on Hindu wisdom. We are starting a series about the stories behind the birth of various famous personalities in our epics. This story is about the avatar of Sri Yamraj in the form of Mahatma Vidur. The reasons behind the incarnation. Once there lived a great sage named as Rishi Mandavya who used to meditate in his hermitage. Once some men approached him in a great state of distress. They asked him for his help, saying that we are carrying some wealth with us and there are some men who are following us. They showed outside where some men could be seen lurking in the darkness. They said, "Those men are going to kill us and loot our goods." The Rishi said, "If you are worried about those men, you can leave the goods here. They are waiting outside at this side, so you can leave from the back side." The men outside were actually policemen who were trying to capture robbers. These robbers had approached the rishi in a false way. The policemen thought, "This sage is not a sage, he is a pakhandi who is helping these thieves." They decided to arrest that sadhu and they went into the cottage and started questioning him. One of the policemen searched the cottage and they could find the stolen goods. They fell upon the sadhu and arrested him. They said, "We will take you to the king for justice." Once they reached the royal palace, the sadhu was presented to the king. The king was greatly surprised because the kings at that time had a lot of respect for sadhus. He said, "Why have you brought this sadhu here?" The prosecutor started presenting the case and said, "We found the stolen goods in his cottage." The king said, "That may not be a very good proof because the sadhu might have been meditating, whereas you might have thought he is a pakhandi, but he might have been meditating and the thieves might have left the goods there. How do you know that he is with the thieves?" The prosecutor said, "No, O king, he was not meditating. We saw him talking to the thieves and he showed them the path to escape." The king asked the sage, "Is this true?" The sage said, "Yes, O king, it is true, but by that time the king lost his temper. He said, "Once you have already accepted that you helped the robbers to escape, what is the question of but now?" He ordered his men to take away the pakhandi dhongi and put him on shuli. Now shuli was a very painful type of death sentence at that time, where the culprit would be put on top of a shul, which is a spear, and the spear would pierce his body from the bottom upwards. When the rishi saw that the king's men are putting me on shul, he accepted this as his fate and thought, "In my last moments I will meditate upon God." He went into the Padmasana and started very peacefully meditating. The king's men were shocked because normally the person would be screaming at this time, and this person is so peacefully meditating in the Padmasana. The king's men ran to the king and reported what they had seen. The king immediately realized that we have made a grave mistake, and the king rushed to the location and prostrated himself before the sadhu. The sadhu was sitting atop the shul in the Padmasana and his whole body was glowing with an aura. The king said, "Please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me. I just gave decision based on the evidence brought before me." The sage opened his eyes and said, "O king, you are not to be blamed." The king was very upset and he was feeling very guilty. He said, "O sage, I gave a wrong decision against such a learned man. Please forgive me." The sage said, "Whatever was in front of you, you'd made the right decision. It was your duty." The king kept begging him for his forgiveness, and the sage blessed him and said, "I will go to Dharmaraj and find out why I was fated to this." And he rose from the shuli and moved heavenwards. Once the rishi reached the abode of the Dharmaraj, he asked Dharmaraj, "I was an ascetic. I was meditating in my cottage. Why did you mete out such a cruel punishment at me?" Dharmaraj said, "Today you are an ascetic, but when you were a child, you were quite cruel. You used to catch hold of small insects and butterflies and put thorns into their backside, and you used to enjoy their pain. This is why you were punished in this way." When Dharmaraja said this, The rishi said, "You are Dharmaraj, you are the Lord of justice. It was your duty to see the karma and give the results accordingly. A child below 12 does not know what he is doing to know the meaning of his actions, and you have punished me in accordance with the laws of adults. So, you sitting on this chair have done a great injustice, and you need to be punished for that. Since this chair is a very revered chair and you are supposed to carry out justice, if you start doing adharma, how will the world live? Hence, I curse you to go down to earth in the form of a human being, and all your life you are going to be making decisions of right and wrong." Dharmaraja humbly accepted this and prepared to descend to earth. The story of birth. In the Mahabharata, there was a great king Shantanu who married Lady Ganga, and they had a son named as Devavrat. This Devavrat, when he grew up, was a very good young man, and his father appointed him as Yuvaraja, that is, the future king. Meanwhile, Ganga was not staying with them. Once, Shantanu went to the woods and he met a beautiful maiden named as Satyavati and fell in love with her. He approached her father for her hand in marriage, but he said, "My daughter is destined for royal life and her children should be the future kings. But you have already promised the kingdom to your elder son, hence I will not give my daughter in marriage to you." Shantanu started living very sadly. When Devvrat came to know this, he found out and he went to the girl's father and said, "I will never marry, I'll never have children, I'll be forever a bachelor. Please give your daughter in marriage to my father." The father agreed, and the king got married to Satyavati. Shantanu and Satyavati always had this guilt that because of us, Devvrat lost his chance to be a normal human being and he was destined to never marry. Because of this great promise, he was given the name of Bhishma. Later in life, Satyavati gave birth to two sons, Chitrangat and Vichitravirya, both of which died very young. Two widows were left behind by Vichitravirya, and they were young girls and they were childless. Satyavati called upon Bhishma and said, "Our family is going to come to an end, so as your mother, I order you to marry my daughters in law and bring progeny to this family." Bhishma reminded her of his promise and he said, "This is not possible." Then Satyavati told him, "Go to the woods and get Vedavyasa." Bhishma asked her, "Why should I get Vedavyasa?" She said, "He will only answer your questions." Bhishma approached the jungle and went and met Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa told him, "I am the son of Satyavati by the blessing of Sri Parashar Muni, where I was born into this world to do some essential jobs." Bhishma brought back Vedavyasa to Satyavati, and Satyavati ordered him to beget progeny with her daughter-in-laws. But Vedavyasa said, "I am ready to obey any command given by my mother, but I am in a very bad condition because I was in tapasya and the girls will not be happy to see me. Please give me time to get ready." Satyavati did not have time at hand and she said, "No, you have to do it immediately." Then Vedavyasa went and waited for the girls to arrive. When the elder princess came there, she saw him in such a state and she got very scared. She started sweating profusely and her eyes closed in fear. Vedavyasa said, "You will have a son, but that son will be blind because you have closed your eyes to me." Then the princess went and told her younger sister, "Don't close your eyes in any condition." So when the younger sister came, she did not close her eyes, but she was so scared of that look that she went pale and started trembling. Vedavyasa said, "You will definitely have a son, but he will be pale and trembling and sickly." Then the princess went back, and when Satyavati came to know that this has happened, she ordered both the princesses once again to approach Vedavyasa, but instead of going themselves, they sent their maidservant because they were so afraid. When the maidservant approached, she was very respectful and humbly she wanted to carry his child. Vedavyasa blessed her also with a child. The first princess who had closed her eyes gave birth to Dhritarashtra, who was blind. The second princess, who had gone pale and was trembling, gave birth to Pandu, who was pale, sickly, and trembling. The maidservant gave birth to Vidur, who became the minister. Thus were born Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur, where Vidur is the rebirth of Yamaraja. This brings us to the end of this episode. I thank you all for watching this, and if you like this channel, I request you to please subscribe for future episodes. Thank you. Till we meet again. Namaskar.